Hey there, I'm Soumya, welcome to this video. And recently React just announced its next major release, that is React 18, and it ships with some beautiful features that will both boost the developer and the user experience, and they are really good, and the React community is really excited for this release. Recently the React's working group also did a Twitter space wherein they talked about the features, took in questions and answered. It was really informative, and the one thing I really didn't knew was that React was originally named or decided to be named F-Bolt. Did you know that? Just let me know in the comment section below. So in this video I'll be explaining those 3 to 4 key highlight features that they are shipping with React 18 that will make our apps really awesome and users will love it. So before we get started, do hit that subscribe button, that means a lot to me, and without further ado, let's get into this video. Okay, so this is the blog with plan for React 18. I'll be giving it all the links in the description below, so you don't have to worry about that. So these features like automatic batching, start transition, and new streaming server-side render are some of the main things or the highlight features shipping with React 18, and in this video I'm going to show you all of it, like what is it. Okay, so let's start with automatic batching. So let's know what is batching first before you know automatic batching. Okay, so let's see what is happening in this code. So here's a button, we are ending a button, then h1 tag with a count JavaScript variable, which is, as you can see, is a use state here, and whenever we are going to click this handle click, we're going to trigger this function, which will in return increase our count by 1, and we are also giving the count variable a color according to this flag is a boolean, and it's true. If it's true, our color of our number will be blue, else it will be black. Okay, so that is all happening right now. Let's see the main thing. Now what has been happening in React is that the moment you click on this button, your set count will change, and it will not re-render it yet until this set count also changes, and after this both state update occurs, it will render only once, and that is called batching. Okay, it batched these 2 updates and rendered only once, which will obviously increase our app's performance, right? But it was not consistent doing it. For example, it was only doing it when we directly put our updates within a event handler, like here on click. Okay, but the moment you just get out of the event handler, for example in this event handler, we are going to fetch something and then we are going to update our states, right? When we are doing this, React was not able to batch these updates, and we had 2 re-renders, which is not good. For example, let me show you in this code boxes. Okay, so this right here is running on React 17, and just see this console. All right, so the moment I tap next, it just render it once, which is totally fine, because if you see here, we are only within the event handler, the handle click, we are just directly updating our changes. So React 17 is doing good at this time. In this example, this is another sandbox. Okay, and here we are not directly putting our state updates within the handle click. Instead, we are fetching something and then we are calling these things back. Okay, so now what will happen here in React 17 is that it will not re-render it once. Instead, if I click here, you'll see we have 2 renders happening, and that's why React 17 was inconsistent in batch updates, and which is not good for our apps, because we are rendering 2 things individually, which is unnecessary. So how automatic batching is going to solve it is that it does not care about where your function is, inside timeouts, promises, native event handlers, or wherever it is. It will just render it only once. For example, so as you saw just now, that this example, we were rendering these 2 state updates 2 times, right? Re-rendering them. But with React 18, if we see this example, just look at the console. This example now is with React 18 and the same function. Okay, same function, we are fetching something, and React 17 was rendering it 2 times. But if I click next in React 18, there you go, we have 1 render, right? So that is automatic batching. It does not care about where your updates are happening or inside what it is happening. If it sees we have multiple updates happening, it will just re-render them once, and that is so good for our app's performance. So that's all about automatic batching. Now let's jump on to start transition. Okay, so let me explain to you with an example. Okay, so imagine you have a input field, and as the user writes, you want to filter the list of data you have and just show according to what he has written, right? Just like search recommendation work. Okay, so what is the workflow to do it? So obviously first we need to control the value of the input field according to whatever the user is typing, and then we need to store that value of the field in a state so that we can use that to filter data and render the list. So your code may look something like this. Okay, so whenever the user types a character, we update the input value and use that new value to search the list and show the results, which is totally fine for smaller screens and if you have less data and all. But if you have larger screens, this may cause issues like your screens may start lagging, it may become unresponsive due to many things happening simultaneously, and in this case we are rendering two things at once. Like we are also controlling the value in the input field and also trying to render the list. So what can we do to solve it? Well, one thing that seems obvious is that if we just differentiate these two updates, that would be really cool, right? So first what we need to do is we can set the input value because it's urgent, the user needs to see what he's writing in the input box, and second we can just pass the input value to our search query, which will render the list. But the problem with this is that this still executes asynchronously, or else you can just say that it will execute simultaneously, right? So that does not solve our problem, right? But in React 18 you can prioritize updates now. Okay, so that's really cool. So imagine we have this, we need our set input value to be the first thing that we need, and then we need set search query, right? So we can prioritize this using start transition. So start transition solves this issue by giving you the ability to mark your updates as transitions. So set input value is something we need urgently, so we will keep this out of the start transition callback, but set search query is inside the start transition because we need to do this only when our set input value is done, only and after immediately it's done. Okay, so that solves our problem, right? So now you can prioritize your state updates, making your app flow really fast and no lag in your web app. So another great thing is that now you are using use transition and you are typing, the user is typing, everything is working fine, but we need to show something to our user that yeah, we are getting your list, you'll see it, right? So how will you show that? You can use something called this in this hook as is pending and start transition, and when you are just updating your set input value, it will be true and you'll show a spinner, and the moment the set input value updates itself and our set search query is fired, the spinner will go away and the user can see all his data. Now this is how start transition work. You can now prioritize your set state updates, and I think that is really cool because that will make your app really smooth and it will not break at all. Now the next thing is the new suspense server-side rendering architecture. Well, what is it? Before I tell you that, why don't I tell you in very short how a server-side rendered application works. Okay, so the workflow is something like this. So the server has all the data, the JavaScript, the HTML, everything. Okay, so now when the client starts to load, it requests the server, so the server compiles everything to HTML and just sends it or streams it to the client side, right? So now our client has HTML. Next, our client also downloads all the JavaScript bundles that the server has, apart from whatever HTML it already has. Now it has the HTML and the JavaScript bundles. Now in the next step, it merges all the JavaScript bundles and the HTML, and this process is called hydration, by the way. And we now have an interactive site in front of us. So the problem with this is that the initial load time of our website or web app, whatever it is, increases really high because all the process that I told you have to be done on all the components of your web app for the whole site to load. Okay, so which is very bad for the user experience. The user can't see anything before the whole thing comes from the server to the client, gets hydrated and being shown in front of the user. So to solve this, React introduced something called suspense. Now let me explain that to you with an example. So imagine this is your website. Okay, this part, this small rectangle is your blog and this big rectangle is your comments. All right, now ideally the user will always want to see the blog first because he wants to read it. That's why he has come to your web app, right? So how React will solve it is that it divides your website into different components, and these components can be prioritized to load. So components which are not to be loaded urgently can be done in the background, and they can be shown whenever they are completely streamed from the server, and that will not block the whole website to be rendered, right? So you can render parts of the website now. To do that, in this example, what you will do is to just put the comments tag inside this suspense tag. Okay, so by doing this, what we are telling React is that it does not need to wait for the comments to start streaming the HTML for the rest of the page to load. Instead, React will just show a placeholder with a spinner in it instead of the comments. So basically what the problem we had is that the whole thing needs to come from the server before the user sees the whole page, right? But we are solving that by just breaking our web app into different components and prioritizing which thing needs to load first and which thing needs to load second using suspense. So the user is getting what he wants, the web app is faster, and that's all we need, right? So this is how suspense is solving the server side rendering being slow problem. These were some really awesome features that I wanted to share with you. So do let me know in the comment section below, what do you think of these features? Are you excited for React 18? And obviously, what are your thoughts on this video? And obviously, if you like this video, do hit that subscribe button, give it a thumbs up, leave a comment below, and I'll see you in the next one. Till then, have a great day and stay safe.